everybody who's been getting excited about the Odyssey movie just today because of the trailer is late to the game. We started a whole podcast because we've been excited about this movie for a long time.
Yeah. Welcome to Winnow. Usually we're a podcast, but this will be a YouTube exclusive. And yes, so we have a whole podcast where we break down the Iliad, and we're done with the Iliad soon. Moving on to the Odyssey. We've been breaking it down book by book, and we'd been wanting to do it for a very long time.
And we decided to time it to finish our podcast read through specifically right before this movie comes out. And so now that the trailers are dropping and we're starting the Odyssey, in the new year, things are looking up and it's very exciting.
Yep. We heard Christopher Nolan was going to drop the Odyssey and we were like, wait, that's my favorite book. So here we are. And yeah, so a new trailer dropped today. We wanted to go through some very specific moments from the trailer that just dropped and maybe put them into context of the story. Like what exactly is potentially happening in this scene? And why should it get us excited, or why should it maybe make us concerned? Although I have very few concerns.
Okay, well, let's just start right with it. So the first image is a sandy plain with a bunch of armor and spears stuck in, clearly as memorials for dead soldiers. So there's nothing directly like this in the actual Odyssey itself, but I think it's safe to assume that we're going to start at the end of the Trojan War and then pick up with the beginning of Odysseus's journey, because it's important to know that the Iliad does not end the Trojan War, and there's a gap of time where there's more fighting and the Trojan Horse and all that, and then Odysseus leaves afterwards. And so I'm assuming that this is sort of the plains of Troy after Troy has been sacked, and everybody is sort of mourning their lost comrades and then getting ready to all go their separate ways. Odysseus leaves after great sort of bloodshed and mourning and all of this, that a lot of people have already died leading up to this, and a lot more people will continue to die in the Odyssey. Yeah. And so I think this opening shot does well to sort of establish that this is coming off the back of a great war, rather than sort of the beginning of something. It's kind of, the middle for Odysseus. He spends like 10 years at war and then another 10 years trying to get home. So the beginning of the Odyssey is actually kind of the midpoint of Odysseus's whole Trojan War cycle.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons why I think that the Odyssey is like ripe for a Christopher Nolan adaptation is because the Odyssey, the original text, is out of order in time. And if there's one thing we know about Christopher Nolan, it's that he loves to tell a story out of order, or in a very strange particular order. And so that is something I'm very excited for. Like if he is going to show flashbacks, we could say, of Odysseus's time during the Trojan War with the Trojan Horse, even though those things aren't in the Odyssey, the text, I am really excited to see the order in which he chooses to tell this story. Because I do not think it's going to be straight through. I love that kind of stuff. And so I am like prepared to be impressed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But also, I will say I'm slightly prepared to be a little bit disappointed relative to the way Homer interweaves the story in the narrative, because the trailer at least suggests some amount of chronology, and the Odyssey doesn't have a strict chronology. But the fact that it starts with like our first shots are clearly him leaving the beach. Like in the book, the first shots are not shots. The first scenes are not Odysseus sort of leaving the shores of Troy.
Yes.
And so I wonder, and I'm slightly nervous that in order to make it more understandable for audiences, they might actually go more chronological, which I think would be disappointing. But you're right. I do trust Christopher Nolan enough to be better than that.
Yes, we shall see. Next up, we got this image of a guy who might be Batman, but I think might be Agamemnon, because he looks large and in charge, which is definitely how Agamemnon likes to be perceived.
Yeah.
His armor is like, it's just a Batman suit.
Yeah. Though looking, you can barely see his face. He does look younger than Matt Damon. And at least, we don't get the ages of all the characters, but I at least picture Agamemnon as being older than Odysseus.
Yeah, that's true.
In the book. So that made, like, my first guess actually was Achilles.
Oh, interesting.
Because Achilles was like sort of so iconic and well known. And Achilles was alive for the beginning of the Trojan Horse sequence, which I think that this is gearing up for.
Yeah, that could be a good point. Yeah, you're right.
Achilles dies in the Trojan War, but he dies while they are like sacking the city after they've broken down the gates after the Trojan War.
Good point. Good point. Then we've got another epic image of, again, the Trojan Horse. The Trojan Horse, which is not a part of the original Odyssey text.
Nor is it a part of the Iliad. I think that's really important. That like
Yeah.
in the sort of cultural understanding of the Trojan War, that's super iconic, but it's actually in neither book directly. In the Odyssey, there are like references back to it, sort of very tangentially, but there's never actually any like sort of depiction of the idea for, or the building of, or the transport into, or the sacking of Troy once they're in.
Yeah. Although, like this images we get of it in the trailer, like make me pretty excited to see it. Like those images inside of the Trojan Horse, like
Where they're all
like,
trying to be quiet.
They're trying to be quiet. Like, ooh, like I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
We're gonna mention probably often a lot throughout our Odyssey journey, like this thing's in the movie, it's not in the book, these things are different. And that is not like necessarily to say that that makes one thing better than the other. I am always first and foremost interested in like what story is trying to be told and like how is that story
And the tone and
told.
the spirit of
Yes.
the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's good to mention when things are different because not everybody watching this video, not everybody who comes across the Odyssey knows necessarily. And so I think it's just fun to mention.
Yeah.
Pointing out what things do we think of as part of the Odyssey just through sort of like pop culture, and what things does the Odyssey actually contain.
Yeah.
One thing I will say about the Trojan Horse that I'm also excited for is that I think that the Trojan Horse might be a really cool way to convey something about like Odysseus's character through like almost through metaphor of the Trojan Horse, like it being this one thing on the outside and one thing on the inside.
Yeah.
Telling a story like the Odyssey through a visual medium, through the medium of film, allows you to do really different things and allows you to make comparisons and, you know, obviously do visual storytelling in ways that you can't do in the text. And so I trust Nolan to, if he's going to include the Trojan Horse, I feel like he's going to try to say something about it.
Yeah, it's not just going to be an epic battle sequence because
Yeah.
there's enough epic battle sequences within the Odyssey that like you don't need, the Trojan Horse to bulk out the sort of action scenes.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say I like about the depiction of it in the trailer so far, the fact that they're kind of pulling it out of the ocean because like in mythology, horses were created by Poseidon from sea foam. And so the idea of like the horse coming out of the ocean as, you know, both the history of here's how horses came to be and now the Trojan horse comes out of the ocean as well.
Oh, I had actually never thought of that because so the Trojan horses being part of Poseidon's, rule. It's not just the ocean, but it's also, he's not just god of the sea, he's also god of horses. Odysseus has so much trouble getting back because he has angered Poseidon. And Poseidon, the sea/Poseidon is actively working against him on his journey home. But like, that's actually really cool. Like starting with the horse.
Yeah. All right. Our next sort of sequence, we get Odysseus and his men in a cave, and then they're looking towards the entrance of the cave, and a big looming figure is coming into the cave.
Yes. We get the first look at the Cyclops, Polyphemus. Just real shadowy, not 100% sure what he's going to look like. Something that I'm hoping to see with the Cyclops is that I'm hoping that we get a sense of uncanny valley. That's kind of what you've got there. You've got like a not quite human, but human, quasi-human, figure. And I think it's kind of lazy to just shortcut to making the Cyclops just like
Monster.
ugly, like go ugly monster, but instead trying to go for this uncanny valley situation. I think similar to what Guillermo del Toro did pretty successfully with his Jacob Elordi look-in Frankenstein, how he captured that feeling of uncanniness as opposed to just like ugly monster.
Yeah. The other thing related to that I hope this does, that I think Del Toro's Frankenstein did less well than the book, is the sort of uncanniness of the sort of intelligence, that they don't just make Cyclops monster, beast, dumb, brutish killing machine, that there's more, both like civilization a little bit, because again, he is a shepherd, he's making cheese, he's not just like totally, monstrous and dumb.
Yeah.
And so I hope that there's more than just sort of like grunting, ugh, I kill people, you must kill me.
Yeah. Although from this shot and like the sounds going on in the trailer, I feel like we're going to get a lot of loud noise, Cyclops.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we've got some images that are very haunting, pretty cool.
And a fantastic color palette. Like,
yes,
it's awesome.
I will say that's one thing I'm really liking is the color grading, the color scheme for this movie. I think it takes a lot of work to break the visuals that we have so closely tied to Greek myths. Like when people talk about the Iliad and the Odyssey, and like my mind really quickly goes to images from like just like grainy images of textbooks from like 6th grade. There's like very, papyrus font, like these, there's like a certain branding that has really attached itself to Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to really work to break that.
And this is more Batman. Christopher Nolan's Batman,
cool.
at least.
Yeah.
You had, I think, a really good theory that this sequence is when Odysseus and some of his crewmates go to the Underworld.
Yes, this is giving Underworld. It's giving Fields of Elysium type stuff. Especially so right after that, you get what looks like some fingers coming out of the dark sand, which could be so once you get to the Underworld, there's kind of a conjuring of shades that has to take place. Mm-hmm. So that could be very much the conjuring of the shades.
Yeah, and this sequence here is Odysseus talking to some of the various dead people. So right in the Odyssey, when he goes to the Underworld, he talks to Achilles, who had died. He talks to Agamemnon, who has since died. And he's like, whoa, you're dead? And Agamemnon's like, yeah, I had a tough time coming home.
Yeah, because Agamemnon doesn't die in the Trojan War. He dies because in a lot of ways, he returns home and has the exact opposite of an experience that Odysseus does.
Yes. And there's a lot of interesting foreshadowing, right, where Agamemnon sort of says to Odysseus, like, hey, when you get home, be wary of your wife, because my wife wasn't very kind to me, and so your wife might not be very kind to you.
Yes. Which, again, all this ties into, homecoming themes, like how does one return home? And we are going to talk a lot about that in upcoming episodes of our podcast.
Yes.
And then we get what seems to be potentially a flashback. Again, we don't know what order of events Nolan's going to, choose to tell these events through. But we get Penelope telling Odysseus to come home. And he's like, what if I can't? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's a trailer being on the nose in ways that I understand how trailers have to be that way, to sort of tell you here are the themes of the story if you're not familiar with that. To me, I think, like the obvious sort of like questions of homecoming are like such an obvious question to ask. And there's so many interesting ways it sort of develops that just like, a 5-second sequence feels overly simplified. But again, I understand that trailers need to do that. I think it's fine for the purpose that a trailer serves.
If the main message of the movie truly ends up being like one man trying to get back home against all odds, comes home and discovers that he's not the same man who he was when he left, and the home that he left is no longer the same place, and then he has to like reconcile with that. Like, if that is what the movie is about,
that's a good thing.
That's pretty great. And like, if Nolan pulls it off with his Nolan-esque style, like, I'm not gonna be mad about that, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I think, people have compared this to Oppenheimer as the project where like Christopher Nolan seems really interested in stories of sort of like great men who do like really big things, but are really drastically changed by it and maybe traumatized by it. But like they recognize the way that their actions have impacted both them and like the entire cosmos around them.
Yeah.
And I think that we both obviously really liked Oppenheimer. And if he's dealing with similar things here, I think that will be a very good direction to go in.
So if anything that we've said in this YouTube video has made you even remotely interested in something else we might have to say, please consider subscribing and following us on our Iliad and Odyssey reading journey. We're going to start posting Odyssey videos mid-January. January 16th, I believe, we'll have our first video out.
Yes, we've got a few more episodes of the Iliad, so if you want to either go back into our backlog and listen to all of the episodes about the Iliad or pick up just at the end as well, you don't need to have read the Iliad in order to read the Odyssey. They are they do follow from one another, but they are disconnected enough that you can just start the Odyssey on their own. But I do think they are really great as a pair because they are very different kinds of stories, but that sort of tell or ask similar questions in very different ways.
Yeah, but we got a lot to say on the Odyssey coming up, and so I'm getting really excited about it.
Yes.
Until then, happy reading.
Happy reading.